everyone back to the Motherload. We are on episode 9. I'm so happy for everyone who has been here for all 9 and welcoming anybody who might be new this month. So I really appreciate you taking this time for yourself. And I really appreciate every guest that we've had on dedicating their time to share their story about motherhood and what all of this means in the grand scheme of life. And we are here with Laurel today, somebody who I look up to and appreciate very much in the business world, but also through mothering. And she's here to share whatever bits of her story end up happening today. As most of you know, most of our conversations are super spontaneous and not planned. And if you didn't know that, now you do. They're not planned. We're just straight spontaneity in the Motherload here. So I'm going to let Laurel introduce herself, and then we will get started into the nitty-gritties of our conversation today. Welcome, Laurel.
Thank you for having me. So hello, everybody. I am Laurel. I am a mother of 3. I have an 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 1-year-old. Of course, I am a wife. I am a business owner. I am so many things. I never know how to introduce myself, but yeah, I own a website design agency and company. I'm from Saskatchewan, moved out to Vancouver to follow my dreams last year. And yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Laurel, for being here and sharing that little bit of yourself. So we are here to talk about some of the heaviest parts of motherhood. And I'm curious if you could share some of the things that feel heavy for you in motherhood.
Feel heavy. I think the number, well, maybe not, I don't know. I'm not going to number them. What feels heavy is expectations, I would say, is like one of the things I've struggled with the most as a mother. And the expectations of, am I doing enough for my child? Am I raising my child how they should be? You know, how come my child isn't like everyone else? That's something that we've dealt with here at my family. And it's like expectations for sure are the heaviest. And it's the ones that you put on yourself.
Yeah, for sure. What are some of the expectations that feel the heaviest? Like, what are some of the phrases or the things that kind of trickle it through your brain when you say expectations?
It's like, for me, it's, am I giving my kid and this is right now more than any time, am I giving my kid enough experiences? You know, am I putting them in enough things? Are they interacting enough? Are they learning how they should be? It's those like the social experiences. That's for sure heavy on me right now.
And it's that piece is so difficult because I think pre-COVID, I feel like people might have been over scheduled, like this like glorification of being busy, and that determines a person's worth or their ability to succeed in life, like they should be in something by 5 so that they can carry on this like hobby or this extracurricular. And when everything kind of went to a halt, and in some places they are still in a complete halt. I feel like navigating where, one, we want to invest our money, right? Because it doesn't want to be seen as wasted, right? Because we don't always know what our kids want, or what they're going to like. And some of those things can feel expensive. And what is the right amount of risk right now versus the right amount of socialization, and how much screen time, because we could fill their schedules with like virtual things. But then, what does that look like in terms of human development and child development?
Right. And from day one, and I feel like this is what kind of sets me apart from other mothers, and in maybe not a good way, is that I have never been one to overschedule my kids. They've been in like one sport at a time, and it's like, they don't enjoy it, my kids personally, as much as other kids, it seems like. So like, not only with COVID now, but it has always been this pressure of the experiences that I can give my children. And I think that's probably one of the reasons that we moved to Vancouver from Saskatchewan, is being like, okay, what experiences can we give our kids out there that we maybe can't or are choosing not to in Saskatchewan? But yeah, it just all comes back to the pressure of, I guess it's the pressure of being a really good parent when in reality, you can't be all the time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what is like,
Right.
what is a good parent, right?
Right.
Because I think, personally, I think being a good parent is being responsive to your child,
Right.
and whatever responsive means for your particular child is different from family to family, right?
Right.
And so I totally agree with you on the not overscheduling.
Mm-hmm.
I have a 6-year-old and an almost 2-year-old, and my 6-year-old hasn't been in much. We put him in gymnastics at a young age, and the attention just wasn't there. It was awful for everyone involved.
Right.
And swimming lessons, we've done that on occasion, not
Yeah.
regularly. And now that he's 6, he's actually starting to verbalize his own interests, so it's like, I want to learn this, or wouldn't it be cool if we could do this? And
Mm-hmm.
so we've started him in wrestling now, but it's like one-sided wrestling in the middle of COVID. So it's just like learning moves, which is just still really great.
Right. Yeah.
And we can do a mix of online and in person. So far, it's just been online. But it's I as parents, we wanted to wait until they had an opinion, right? Like, I wasn't. I personally, my values are not just let's put them in something because that's what's socially acceptable.
Right.
Um, I wanted it to be something that they were interested in, and that I also wanted to go and sit and watch. Like,
Right.
which definitely I feel like possibly sets me apart from other parents as well, just in terms of like, I want it to be something they enjoy. I don't want
Right.
it to be at 5 o'clock. That is not prime
Mm-hmm.
time. Not prime time.
Yeah.
Or wasn't historically. It's better now.
Right.
But with 3 and 4-year-olds, like 5 o'clock is complete
Yeah.
chaos.
Chaos.
For
Yeah.
me and the dynamics in my house anyway. Everyone's hangry and nobody's happy. Nobody wants to go.
Yeah.
Nobody's going anywhere
Right.
at 5 o'clock. So yeah, that's interesting that you say that the extracurriculars, or what kind of experiences you're wanting to give to your children, has dictated really geographically where you'd like to live.
Yeah.
And so now that you've moved, can you share a bit of what that was like
Oh.
as a mother? And I know your
Mhm.
littlest one was little when you guys did that.
Yeah. So she was 3 months when we picked up and left. And we have no family out here in Vancouver. We have no friends out here. It's been really hard to make friends during COVID. But as a family, we wanted to follow our dreams. We wanted to be in a bigger city, but also have like the ocean and the mountains and everything like that. And one day my husband just said, we're going. We're going. You're coming or you're not. And I'm like, okay, let's do this. And we knew the whole time coming out here that, or we felt like it would be the best choice for our family. That we can go walk to the ocean whenever we want. We can go experience the forest. There's no winter. It's just like, it was a driving force coming out here. Is like, our kids can go to the schools here. They can experience, I love Saskatchewan and I love where I'm from. And I'm not saying that. It's just, we wanted to make those choices hoping that it would better, our kids' lives. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so with expectations being some of the heavier parts of motherhood, how do you navigate that? how do you keep those things in check? Or how do you know when they're not healthy kind of striving or expectations?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I have generalized anxiety disorder. I was diagnosed as an adult after my second child. And so the expectations that I feel and the stress that I feel of being this amazing parent or wanting to be this amazing parent and give my kid these experiences all the time is like my own anxiety, which is challenging. And then that anxiety dribbles down, I feel like, to my children as well. Um, but you know, I've done the breath work, I've done the meditation, I've done these tools, and they all help, they all work. But what I actually find myself doing on a daily basis, like I'm talking every day, is having to stop myself and be like, it's okay. It's okay. And sorry, this like makes me really emotional, but it's like, it's okay that we're different. It's okay that, our kids don't get to do the things I want them to do. And, or that I think, not necessarily that I want, but that I think they should be doing. And it's like, I literally tell myself it's okay every day. I apologize. But, Owen, so my 8-year-old has ADHD, a diagnosis of, and he's got challenging behaviors that go with that. And so I feel like the pressure to give him this amazing life is even more. Well, I guess I don't know. Like compared to the other kids, I want to make sure that he gets like these great experiences. And yeah, I just like yesterday, I caught myself and be like, Laurel, it's okay that we're different. It's okay that he's different. And it truly helps. I know it may not look like it, but in the moment, it does. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so important to acknowledge the hard.
Yeah.
And it's so important to empathize and validate that for yourself. And that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing you doing, is that when the word self-care is dropped, and feel free to roll your eyes when you hear that word.
Right.
But like you said, the meditation or the journaling or the yoga or the whatever someone's thing is, really what all of those things help with is that positive self-talk,
Right.
is staying in the space of
Yeah.
it's okay or it's not okay.
Right.
That it's this is reality, and I can do my best, and my kids are doing their best with their limitations and their capacities, right? Like
Yeah.
our oldest is highly sensitive, and diagnosed highly sensitive. I like to make that distinction just because there are a lot of strong-willed children out there.
Yeah.
But we have an OT and professionals who are helping us through some of the nervous system things that go along with being highly sensitive. So
Yeah.
for us, what this looks like in his body is that his body is like this most of the day.
Yeah.
And so when one small thing happens that a other family might not find as a challenging moment, for us is a challenging moment.
Right.
Because it's fists are flying and legs are kicking and words are screaming.
Yeah.
And to stay regulated in that moment for me, because as soon as I fly off, then it's like WWE. It's like,
yeah.
it takes a long time to come back from it.
Yeah.
And so what we've learned as parents is that it's not just as simple as, can they have a sleepover or go somewhere or do this. We are constantly having to check in terms of like, okay, how has the week been? Like, because we don't want him to experience something like that outside of the home until he starts to figure out how to do it himself, like how to bring himself down, because it can happen because you've said no to TV. It can happen because you missed a hunger cue. It can happen because, like, there's so many different ways that it can become big.
Mm-hmm.
And so the impulsivity is part of it. We're not seeing the impulsivity across spectrums at this point, because we did inquire about ADHD and we had a pre-assessment. But the psychologist that we met with just said that we're not seeing it at school, we're only seeing it at
Right.
home. And
Right.
so we've been given tons of tools to support us and him so that we don't get to a 10 out of 10.
Right.
Because 10 out of 10 is scary in our house.
Yeah. Yeah. Ours too. Ours too.
Yeah.
And, when I think of these like expectations of being a parent and the experiences like we want our children to have, I think back to the first day Owen went to preschool. I think it was preschool. And from that first social interaction moment, like I knew he was different than his peers. He hid, in the closet, like, or not closet, his like
His locker or whatever. Yeah.
booth thing, for like the first 3 days of school straight, when all the other kids were, at their little chairs and tables and stuff like that. And from those first moments, it's like, okay, how can I help this kid? And then from there, the pressure built, right? Like, how can I help this kid? I love him. He's amazing, but how can I do better as a parent so that I can help this kid? And it was just like never ending on top of that. Right. Yeah.
And so how did you navigate that? How did you manage, everything that comes with that awareness?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, medication was part of our choice. So both he and I chose to go on medication, me before, but with his diagnosis, we ruled out a few ADHD medications that didn't work, and we found one that has worked for him. So that's one small piece of the puzzle. For myself, there was a lot of, the self-talk, the acceptance, being okay or not okay with it. Of course, I have, as my own being, worked a lot in self-care. Again, I don't really love that word, but, through meditation, through yoga, through personal development, and more importantly, actually through the experiences. I feel like I've learned more through every single challenging moment or failure, than I have just sitting with myself. And I know that may sound awful, especially for those of you who don't know me, which is probably most of you. I'm actually a yoga teacher as well. And I do practice meditation and have my own personal practices, but it's like, those are the reflective times that I reflect on the challenging experiences. And I mean, if you ask me what tools work and what don't work, I don't know. I don't know. But just, I think for me and my family and our kids, we're trying to teach this to them, is that growth and learning is the most important thing. Through no matter what situation it is, no matter what challenge it is, no matter how much it sucks during the time, knowing that you will always learn and then grow from that learning. Yeah.
So share with me, Laurel, like when you've just experienced a 10 out of 10 and you're sitting in it and words have flown out and actions have been done. What does that reflection or what does that debriefing look like for you?
It's changed over the years. Now I have found, we could say like my happy place. So for me, going to the ocean is like it washes away, well, not everything, but the moment,
Yeah.
right? It washes away the 10 out of 10, the anxiety. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to just like pop on over. And that is like an immediate, I feel better. But of course there's circumstances where you can't do that, or you can't leave your kid or your family or whatever. And that is where I do exit the situation if I can. You know, if my husband's there, my Owen's 8 now, so it's like we can leave him alone wherever in the house for him to have a moment and for me to have a moment. But I do actually do breath work. I do breathe. I do breathe always, but it does help for like the immediate calm down of an escalated situation. And then as soon as I just have those few minutes, you know, where I can bring my heart down, my frustration down, I come back and revisit the situation. And often because my son is 8, we can talk it out.
Right.
Whereas, you know, with my 5-year-old, we can't talk it out as well as I can with my 8-year-old.
Yeah. I think the communication afterwards is so important. Because even if when they are at a 10 out of 10 and you are at a 10 out of 10, your logic is gone. Like
completely.
It's gone. We become primal. Like it really, it's
we
it's
do.
a
And
science.
I've caught myself. I'm like saying things or acting in a way that is completely irrational. Just like I just in no way. And then I know that stopping the situation, like however that looks, leaving, walking away, being like, hey, oh, and I'll be right back. Right. Mom will be right back. Because it'll just the irrationality, it'll just keep on going on. Right.
Yeah.
I remember though, I was
ahead.
just going to say, I remember when Owen was younger and when we started to see the challenging behaviors, you know, 3, 4, he would bite me, he would hit me, he would punch holes in the walls, that kind of stuff. When I was in that moment and I wasn't able to have a conversation with him that could really be understood, I do remember being like, this is never going to end. Like, I don't know how over the years, this is awful, but I'm like, he's going to grow up beating me up, right? Like he's 3 now, but what's he going to look like when he's like 6 feet tall? And I remember having those like dreaded thoughts. But I will say for us over the years and with his maturity and development, the 10 out of 10 situations have gotten better. I mean, I feel like they're more escalated now that he's older, I'm older, but we're able to resolve them. To the best of our ability.
Yeah, for sure. I am so proud of the fact that you have sought out these supports for him and the diagnosis, because the reason I'm saying this is because I have had so many conversations with parents in the last year where they suspect something might be a bit different about their child. And it takes an act of courage and bravery and so much vulnerability to admit to a stranger, you know, that these things are happening. And I mean, your support person might not be a stranger, but often the assessor would be. And it takes a real vulnerability to go down that road. And I just want to validate for you that you are doing everything for him and you are doing everything for you in the best way possible that is right for your family and right for you and right for Owen. Because when they display these challenging behaviors that are not the typical age range, right, in where they're expected to have meltdowns and tantrums and that kind of thing, it's bigger when they're bigger. And I can attest to that. I have had that same thought around the getting older and what that looks like. in terms of the treatment and the relationship with you.
Right.
And it's a hard thing to walk yourself out of,
Mhm.
because there's a lot of assumptions, there's a lot, like there's just so much wrapped up in
Right.
that,
Right.
um, when they're not going to be at this brain development forever, and you're not going to be at this skill level
Right.
for in the next 10 years, right? Like those things will
Mhm.
shift and will change. Um and it's hard to separate yourself from some of those like dreams or ideals you had of having a teenager, or what
Yeah.
that might look like. For
Absolutely.
me, my statement that I often go to is bar fights. That's like, I have
Yeah.
that kid, and I think that's going to be, I try not to tell myself to get too far down that storyline,
Right.
but that is quite honestly a story that has run through my head of like,
You
how many
can't help
times am
but
I going to have to bail you out of something where you didn't have impulse control and it was over something silly, or are you going to get hurt because of something, like,
yeah.
and that kind of thing. But ours is big muscle movement is the thing that helps, our 6-year-old. And so we do
Yeah.
a lot of hiking, a lot of,
Mhm.
we have a trampoline inside the house, and just
Yeah.
like big muscle. Yeah, he needs the big muscle movement to take his body from this to just like this. I don't know that it will ever be, like
Yeah.
this.
Jelly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
there's a piece of it that just won't ever resolve. And that's just part of, it's honestly accepting. We talked about this in episode 1. Actually, Roxanne had mentioned this, accepting the child that you have
Yeah.
instead of the child you thought you were going to have.
Yes. Yes. And that's exactly it. And that comes back to these expectations and the experiences. I was telling my husband the other day, I was like, I thought I was going to be a hockey mom. I imagined the big suburban Owen with like his skates and just be it like, because
Yeah.
that's how I grew up, right?
Right.
That was my experience. And that was, my dad was a hockey guy. And it's like, actually, it was this year more than anything that I had to realize, like, that's not Owen.
Hmm.
He's a Minecraft kid. Like,
Right.
creativity, he loves art. Like, he's this kid who I never thought I would have, never
Yeah.
thought would come from me and my upbringing. And I had to be, okay with that. And I had to accept
Mhm.
that and I had to embrace it. And as soon as I did, our experiences, going back to that, actually changed. So now well, I mean, I'm a computer person as it is, but like I'll play Minecraft with Owen and like
Right.
he has the best time of his life. Like he gets to build these houses that he never thought he could. And yeah, it's interesting to see how things unfold. And then as soon as you shed those expectations or, the best you can really embrace what your life is and how your kid
Mm.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a beautiful, I feel like that's such a beautiful note to end on today.
Yeah.
Just that, like, shedding the expectations,
Yeah.
embracing what is,
Yeah.
really honoring your capacity, and the skills that you have, the skills that they have, and working within that container instead of trying to force something different. Like forcing him to go to hockey would feel like probably traumatic for him, right? Like,
Probably would. I
right?
tried once, he hated it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like that is so true for on so many levels, regardless of if there is some kind of diagnosis or underlying, kind of struggle. I feel like just accepting your children, as they are, and accepting you as you are, and your
Right.
capacities and your stories and your how you got here, I think is so important. So I really, really appreciate you sharing these pieces of yourself with us today, Laurel. And I really, really appreciate the vulnerability and the bravery and the courage that you are showing, to Owen and to yourself and to now this community, because I think it's not talked enough about.
Right. Yes. And you're welcome. I was happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Laurel.
Welcome.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.